everybody. How are you? I'm sorry, I get all into the music. How are you doing today? You are here at Just Talking Business with Stephanie Van Bark, and I'm a small business owner. And as you know, this show is about pivoting as a small business owner. So the young lady I'm bringing forward now has really pivoted in a very strong way. She's scaling her business, and it was a bold and ambitious undertaking. So we're going to talk to her about how it's going. And we've talked to her before, by the way, so we'll talk to her when she gets here. Hey, Saliha.
Hi, thanks for having me on today, Stephanie.
Look, I'm always talking about how the different hairstyles that I have, but I love her hairstyle too. So at one point, you might see that soon too. There have been a couple of changes. I typically ask you who you are and what you do, but there have been a couple of changes since you and I talked last time. First of all, I see doctor in front of your name, so that's good. That's very exciting. But what has happened since we talked that is the big pivot for you, but the big scale opportunity? I'll let you tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I can't remember if that was pre-COVID or
It was
post-COVID.
during COVID. You were like
It
the
was
fourth
during
show.
COVID.
You were like the fourth show.
Okay. And well, since then, so first off, I'm the CEO of Urgent Inc. And so we're a creative youth development nonprofit based in historic Overtown here in Miami, just celebrating 30 years. And as part of our 30-year strategy, what we incubated in the last, 8 years was, are we going to do a school? Are we going to add a vertical to our business? And so what we actually did is said, yes, we said, yeah, we're going to create a subsidiary of Urgent Inc. called Urgent Academy, which is a new private micro school right here in historic Overtown, Miami. And so we took the leap. We just finished our first year. So, and a matter of fact, in 3 weeks, we'll be opening for the second year. So that's pretty crazy to me.
That's an accomplishment. That's an accomplishment because so I know Saliha pretty well. When she was talking about having a school, I was like who thinks of opening a school? It's just not one of those things you think of. But as I've been doing a little research, I've learned, it is definitely a possibility. You've demonstrated that, and it's something that once you really kind of get the system up and running, it could be very successful. So was this a part of your strategic plan 30 years ago when you sat down, thought about your business plan, or was this part of your evolution to scale?
Yeah, it's really been part of our evolution. I don't think 30 years ago when the founders were sitting around, the table thinking about they were going to do Urgent Inc., that they were going to do a school. Mm-hmm. I think 30 years ago, even charter schools weren't really that known, right? Mm-hmm. So charter schools was like the first type of school that sat outside a little bit of a traditional public school. Mm-hmm. It gave them some autonomy to local communities. And so now what we see in the education space is really part of the disruption that's happening in education is folks being able to start schools that can accommodate various type of learners. And so really it's not a one size fits all, but there's an opportunity to say, hey, I see a niche here. Something that's not being met in the traditional school system. How can I be part of a solution for more children and families? And so the micro school model has really flourished as a result of COVID. A lot of teachers and parents put together small learning pods during COVID, when the schools were closed. And then the micro school became kind of a thing, its own model. And so over the last several years, it's really grown around the country. And now we're part of that micro school movement and people are like, well, what's a micro school?
I was about to ask you that. I'm glad
what's a micro school? People don't know the lingo. So a micro school really is a school that's under 100 children or less.
Okay. Okay.
Most of them being, around 20 to 50 students, but usually 100 students or less would be considered a micro school.
Now, how are you looking to at some point scale beyond that? Or this is really sort of the space you really feel like you can make the most impact in a micro school dynamic?
Well, our school model, one of our design principles is focused on relationships, and that's building strong relationships with students and families. And so a small school, model fits that perfectly. But I have to say, when I was researching different school models to learn from, I've seen schools with 300 plus students still have a core mission to be learner centered, to make sure that the relationships are very strong in the school. They know all the children's names, they know the families, and that focus on relationship building can happen in larger schools. But I think for us, at least in the first couple of years, we're going to stay true to the micro school model. Plus, it's all about facility, right?
Right.
So our facility that we're growing into will be able to accommodate up to about 92 students at full capacity.
Good.
And so who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years. If someone wants to gift us a building, we would say yes,
Gladly take it.
We take gifts.
Like buildings.
Like buildings.
Like
Yeah.
buildings.
Gifts like buildings.
Exactly.
Put us in a 10,000 square foot, floor of space somewhere. That would be nice.
We'll take it.
Yeah. Look, we just started, and our 8th graders that are coming, that are going to be with us this year, they're saying, okay, what's going on with the high school? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we've only been open, 1 year. You guys are asking
want
for
you
high
to
school.
transition to high school as well?
They the families are already asking us, are we going to be able to have a high school available for them next year? So I'm like, wow.
A little ambitious. That's a little ambitious, people. That's a little ambitious.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's part of what we're thinking about, and what we need to make that happen.
Why your
to have a
school?
ninth grade.
What made
My
you
school, yeah.
all of a sudden 8 years ago at you and company start to say this is the route we want to go? Again, I've known you for years. You've had a very successful youth-based organization that's after school support. Why say now the next step is a school?
Well, for years, families had asked us, have we thought about doing a school? And so that kind of planted the seed for us to start thinking seriously about it. I was able to get into a fellowship to explore the possibility of what would it take to design a school.
Mm-hmm.
And I also went through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business program at Miami-Dade College about 8 years ago as well. And the project that I worked on as part of that experience was to do a complete business plan for the school, as I was thinking about it back then.
Okay.
And because Florida is actually one of the most progressive school choice states, it really offered a business model that made sense at the time, because of the per student allocation as part of the tax credit scholarship program. And so there was a base of support that looked like it would be sustainable because of the commitment that the state of Florida has made to supporting private school education.
Okay.
And so, different from operating a nonprofit organization that serves young people, where you have to continually go after grant funding to support your programs or donations, have donor relationships. The school offered a different type of business model where there was a set opportunity to access sustainable funding per student.
Now, the funding Go ahead.
Mhm.
Finish. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so that business model made sense because it wasn't like you were going to have to raise 100% of your funds every year. It was based off of how many young people you could have as students.
Now, is that scholarship based on income of parents? And what if there is a parent? How did you structure your pricing to include this supportive funding as well as those that may have to pay private dollars?
Sure. So, but when the Step Up, it's called Step Up, people know it as the Step Up Scholarship or the tax credit scholarship. Um, in the beginning, it was income based, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's open to all families. So they have the tax credit, which supports families with a certain income, which actually is 185% AMI, which is the area median income. And so it's very generous to not only support low income, but middle income parents as well, and families can take advantage of that. But also because of the changes in private school support, not this legislative season, but last season, now any family can access their students' allocation
Mm-hmm.
through the Step Up program, regardless of income.
Okay.
So you can um, access what the amount is for your county and apply that. You can stay in the public school system, which includes charter schools, because charter schools actually are public schools, so just have a different leadership structure. And then also private school and homeschool. Now you can
And tap into
apply
those
those
tax credits.
funds to a homeschool experience.
Oh, wow. That's
So
very
we structured our tuition. 80% of the tuition that we charge is funded, can be funded by the Step Up Scholarship,
mm-hmm.
right? If you follow all the directions and get approved, right? And then 20%, it's either a sliding scale or you can apply for our internal scholarship. So there's no direct cost to families if they apply to our student scholarship. And that's what we raise money for.
Okay. And which brings me to you said, although this is not completely dependent on grant funding, there is some grant funding that I'm sure is applied as most schools. Are
Yeah.
you finding now, with all of the changes that have gone on in the administration, that you're having to shift a little bit, or is education still allowing for opportunity to fundraise through grants, or is it now going to have to be more donor focused?
Well, the volatility that's happening in the nonprofit space right now,
And for
really,
profit, like but I got you. I see where you're going.
um, is really impacting all levels of kind of grant support, whether that be
Mhm.
federal money, state money, even the county. The county just issued a crazy budget that wants to zero out all community-based funding, which
They
is
did.
and cultural arts funding, which is pretty alarming.
They did.
That directly impacts our families,
Mhm.
right? Um, we have had some impact. We're still trying to see what those funding puzzle pieces will be, for our fall, which is, a couple weeks away.
Uh-huh.
But on the private school side, the legislator still has funding set aside for the scholarships,
Okay.
right? So that being the core of our budget, um, that puts us in, a decent space. We still have to raise 20% of our budget, um, which we're doing, now.
Mhm.
But, right now I'm not that alarmed. I am concerned. I have
Mhm.
my hair platinum, so you can't see all the gray that's happening, right? So you can't really see that a lot of gray is happening right now because this is a strategy. So,
Ooh.
It is very stressful. It is very stressful, but you know, I've been saying miracles have been known to happen, and so I have faith that we'll be able to weather, you know, this storm.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
glad to hear that. So, okay, so the word, first of all, edu edupreneur was a
which
new
I
word.
like that. That's
It
cute.
was pretty cool. And actually it's a thing. It's a real thing. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
That was kind of cool. I was like, wow, who knew? But after reading some of the numbers, I get it. So I have here that, in the US, actually, education generates revenue upwards of anywhere between 1.4 trillion to 3.12 trillion. We project it by 2030, it'll be at 3.12.
Hmm.
98.9 billion of that in the private institutions. If you look at Miami-Dade County, there are 467 private schools, I believe, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, and 550 public schools. So, I mean, this is a much more competitive widget than I thought. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So who are you marketing to? How are you marketing? And how is that as successful a strategy as you've wanted it to be?
Yeah, the marketing thing is really tough. We've done a lot of the most successful marketing for us has really been just grassroots, on the ground
Mhm.
flyers,
Uh-huh.
showing up to tabling events at community gatherings, talking to parents at different CBO parent meetings,
Right.
word of mouth. Although I've spent more than I would like to admit on other types of marketing, direct mail,
Mhm.
social media, radio, um,
But
all
making a
those.
decision about a school is actually something that you do need to feel like you can, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I learned, that because I've been in the out of school space, the after school program,
Mhm.
um, I thought it was going to be pretty easy to find families. Like it was going to be just an easy funnel. Like, yes, we know these folks, we'll send them to your school, but it one and one did not equal two. And
Right.
so, um, one, because we've started at middle school, which is a very interesting age with a high need, actually. Um, but there's a dynamic when you're working with middle school families, and that is you have to win over both the kid and the parent.
Yes.
Both of them have to buy in,
Mm,
right? Different from elementary. The parent makes the decision where the child goes, right? And so the parent says, "Oh, I like this school. This is where you're going." Well, at
mhm.
the middle school level, the young people have autonomy and have some say, which is good, right? Um, and so we have to win both. So we have to market both to the child
Mhm.
and to the parent, then get them both on the same page, right? And
Right.
so that is really, about relationships,
Mhm.
and also speaking to a parent who is looking for something different.
Right.
So that may mean that their child or them are having some dynamic where they're at, where they're actively looking for another experience.
Okay.
And so, I have found the marketing to be a little bit more difficult than I had imagined.
Mhm.
Um, but that doesn't, we're not giving up. You know, last year we had 8 students, very small. Everybody, we knew everybody's name, we knew everything about them. There's, you can't hide with 8 students. We saw a great effect, not only with their, personal qualities, what we call personal quality, their skills, their communication, their confidence, but also on the academic side, we saw, really proof of concept, because our school is a little different. So we are a project-based school. So it's very hands-on,
Mhm.
integrated classes. Um, we really focus on relationship building, and then we also have the film, arts, culture, and entrepreneurship piece that's also woven in as our career and technical education lane. And so there's a lot of moving parts with the school, very different than what you would traditionally be presented.
Mhm.
Or not presented, right? Because typically when of these schools and you say, okay, let's go here,
Right.
because they're in your community. Um, Other than if you're looking for a magnet school, right? And you say what they offer. So there's a lot of dynamic that we've had to learn about how to best position and talk about the school so that parents can understand what we're talking about because it's so different.
Exactly.
And also finding middle schoolers to talk to directly. And so this year we're going to be concentrating on connecting with fifth graders very early on.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
The strategy.
and then because finding middle schoolers when they're already in middle school has been proven very difficult. They're like, I was saying, they're like socks in a dryer. Like they disappear. Like I don't know where they are. They're all
They
hiding
already
somewhere.
formed like friendships. So they're going to want to go with their friends. So would
Yes.
you even start earlier, at that point? Because, they're going to want to be with their friends until they're seniors in high school,
Yeah, the
Um,
friendship thing is a huge thing.
huge.
And they don't want to switch schools to not go where their friends are going.
Correct. Correct.
Which
Correct.
is another
Kids
issue that
and
we
their
encountered.
friends.
Yes.
Now you have kids kicking and screaming.
But it's
And so
funny because the kids that we had last year, I was like, okay, don't you want your friends to come? They were like, no, we do not want our friends to come. Like we like this space and we don't want to share it.
oh, no.
So,
Well,
it's so interesting. It's so interesting.
okay, okay, we talked about your determinant and who you're marketing to. What's your say? Like, when you are talking to a parent, what do you tell them?
Well, first I want to know what their current experience is and what they're looking for. So I start asking them like, what's the experience that you've had,
Mm.
with your current school, and what are you looking for now, right? And so kind of understand what their needs are. So some may say, oh, I have a very creative child and I want them to be in a creative space.
Mhm.
And this school looks like it can meet that need. And so then I know how to talk with the parent about, okay, well, these are the opportunities that we have to promote and cultivate your child's creativity. So I'll start there. So really, I just like to learn from where the parent or child is at, and then kind of talk to them about what our school can offer that would support that.
And does that talk start, for example, school starts, we all know school starts in about 3 weeks. Are you talking to parents now for 2027? Like
Yeah, not well. I have because it's I funny because I'll meet parents of like third and fourth graders, right?
okay. Okay.
Or new or rising fifth graders, and I'm like, okay, well, here's keep us in mind, later on this year, So we've started to have those conversations already, but I've learned to, yeah, try to rope them in early, get them engaged,
Hmm.
so that there's sustained interest. And so how do we do that? So yeah, it's a big learning curve for us.
Now, Miami-Dade County, I think and I've recently learned, are having it, which I found interesting. Some of their public schools are having a difficult time in terms of participation, attendance, roster. Some schools that we've known that's been around since I have been in Miami are,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Low
at
enrollment.
having their
Yeah.
doors closed because there's not enough enrollment. I'm assuming some of that is because of what we're saying now, the micro private schools, the homeschooling. So, in your mind, what is the future of education as we know it, and how does that support what you're doing?
This is a good question because America, well, the United States of America, um, is one of the only countries, democratic countries, that just has two options, one option for education, public school or a private school that was not funded by government until recently, like the Step Up scholarships in Florida. If you look at several other European countries, for example, they've always believed in educational pluralism. So pluralism is that the government says, we don't care how you choose to educate your child. We're going to support you however.
Okay.
So the government has taken a stance to say, okay, we support private schools, we support co-ops, we support homeschool, we support public school. They've had a long tradition of supporting all types of schools. America's a little different in that, you started out with private school education that was very segregated or class-based. And then you had the adoption of public schools when they figured folks had to learn a little something to help the economy. And so we have a different tradition around the purpose of schools here in America. But if you look around the world, they're not so dug in against each other around public-private. And so I think we're definitely in a state of educational disruption. And that when you open the market for it, it produces competition. And so anytime you have competition, the infrastructure is going to be disrupted. And so what does that re-envisioning look like? What does re-envisioning the public school experience look like? And a lot of school districts are grappling with that, right? So when you're the only choice in the room, some things get
taken for
not
granted.
paid attention to, right?
That's taken
And
for
now you have some competition, and so you have to look about how are we thinking about how we work with children, how do we work with schools, how do we work with families, how do we work with communities. And so I don't know how it's all going to shake itself out, but what I do know is that Black women in particular hold the most education degrees of doctoral degrees. Black women hold the most in education. And then we also look at, there's a long tradition of Black women opening up private schools prior to having access to public schools. We could think of Mary McLeod Bethune as being one of those that we know here in Florida in particular. She started out with a private vocational school serving about 10 girls, So there's a long tradition that we have as Black people in taking control of our own education post-slavery. And so sometimes we have to go back to some of the beginnings to say, how did we get here, right? But we have traditions in education and leading the curriculum, and building curriculums that matter to communities and to what we care about. And so we just have to think about not to be so dug in on the politics, but really ask, well, what do kids need, right? And then not only what do kids need, but how can we create opportunities for kids to contribute at a higher level in their communities and to the world and to our new economies?
And I actually think that's a powerful statement, because I've seen there was a documentary on education around the world. It's very powerful and interesting when you started to think about not only just how they educate, but the results of the education. A much more exposed child, better quality of life when it comes to family time, just a variety of different things that they're doing differently. But it sounds like to me, in our country, since we are so polarized in almost anything that we do, by the way, I mean, we're a highly competitive country. It feels like to me that means there's going to have to be some advocacy around that there's going to have to be some real push for change. What does that look like? Have you been involved in that or seen that happening around the world? And then what's the governing body? Like we say, public schools has a governing body that kind of governs that. Then there's the charter side and there's homeschooling side. What's the body that governs micro schools?
Yeah, so we're in the wild, wild west right now. So,
I do what I want to do. Okay, that's not what she said.
and that's private schools in general don't have a lot of um, traditional accountability measures like public schools. That doesn't say that private schools are not holding themselves accountable through a process of accreditation.
Mhm.
There is private school accreditation that's available. Right now, there's folks around the country working on a micro school accreditation because they know that serving a smaller number of kids needs to look a little different than your traditional
Mhm.
accreditation. And so like this is like emerging every day. Someone is working on something innovative in this space. And so one of those things is a micro school accreditation process, because other accrediting bodies won't look at you until you have 20 students at least,
Okay.
or there's a couple different, or you've been in school, you've been active for so many years. So there's other barriers to micro schools getting, an accreditation
Mhm.
now. And so that's happening. Um, because of the small learning environment that micro schools offer, public schools have even started to explore how they can embed a micro school model in the
Model.
public schools.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, oh, everybody wants a micro school. Well, how can we be down in this, right? Like, how can we get in?
The
You
money and
know,
I can do it, and they got
yeah,
buildings already.
so there's um folks are like, oh, we got to get in this game. We have to innovate. And you definitely have to innovate, because there's no reason why education should look the same as it did 100 years ago. We are in a totally different society right now.
Right.
Um, Taking tests, memorization is not going to get you very far in the society, because information is readily available,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
So as before, information was not readily available, but now information is overwhelming. You have
Yeah.
so much access. But what you really need is criticality. You need discernment. You need to be able to figure out what type of information this is. Is it crap, or is
Mhm.
this bordering on the truth, or what perspective is this information being presented to me? So you really have to have critical thinking skills and be able to, yes, do you have to memorize stuff still? Yes, but it's all about applying it
Right.
to real
Absolutely.
life scenarios,
Mhm.
to making those connections. Traditional education typically tells you things in a with no regard to context.
Mhm.
So you need contextualized learning so it makes sense, and that's so you remember it and it's meaningful, and that you actually can do things with the things you know outside of taking tests. Um, we have a portfolio model. So kids are applying what they know to produce something to show that they know what it actually really means, and they're not going to forget it after test day.
Okay. Good. That's good because I mean, to your point, I think you and I have actually talked about that. There are some students that just learn certain ways. So to have this one way of learning that is research based, some people are better at application. Those studies, I'm one of those people. Those things that I'm able to do over and over again stick.
Yeah, you got to practice it, right? You have to practice. Like, a skill doesn't become, fluid until it's, how
Done it.
many hours you have to put into it.
But some
Um,
people can read stuff and it sticks. It's just up to your learning. Do you find that you're having to adapt your model a little bit based on per student, or you just kind of, you know, you have a model, and then we're going to make sure that this that the child learns, or we're able to help them figure out how to learn in that way.
Every student helps co-create their individual learning plan with
Okay.
us.
Okay.
And so we have 8 learning categories or domains, and the young people become familiar with all of the domains and the skills and competencies associated with those.
Hmm.
And they say, hey, I believe I'm pretty good at this. I want to concentrate on this.
Okay.
Then they go through that and they make their goals in consult with their teacher. And so the teacher says, well, yep, you're doing good with this, but I also see from these metrics that you need to practice this, or these are the standards for your grade level. Let's see if we can make sure to get you competent right here. And so it's really a collaborative approach, because you know what we found in our first year, and when I was going around the country and learning from other schools, a lot of kids know where they're struggling, and a lot
Mhm.
of kids know what they do well.
That's true.
And
Especially
we,
by the sixth grade.
yeah, and what they like to do and what they want to learn about and what they care about. They have a lot of opinions, okay?
Mhm.
So it's
That-
about how do you help them put it into a structure that accelerates their learning. And
Okay.
so, how do we use their interests, what they care about, creating projects that they explore? And then the teacher helps to make sure that they're building the skills that they need as they're pursuing their interest. And so, this has been found to be very successful in not only improving young people's motivation to
Mhm.
care about school
Mhm.
and show up, because right now your research might have shown you that absenteeism is terrible right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Kids are not coming to school.
Mhm.
Since COVID, this is something that's a struggle.
And I don't even think that's about, just talking to different people in the education space, because I'm not. But I don't even think that's solely just about the education system itself. It's feeling safe. The whole bully thing has become a big thing. Just a quality of life in a school experience where you feel valued, I think is a
Yeah,
real big thing.
you hit it right on the head. I call it like V cubed: value. Are you feeling valued? Vision. Do folks see you
Mm-hmm.
right in the
Mm-hmm.
space? Um,
Yeah,
and you you have to. Those things are so important for people.
absolutely. Whether you
And
want to
voice.
believe it or not, it is true.
And a third key is voice. And voice is like, do I have the opportunity to be heard in this space? Do people care what I have to say? And how does that impact my experience?
Mm-hmm.
And so all of those things are very important.
And I think maybe sometimes is, and I was a pretty good student, and even educators are may listen a little bit more to students that are a pretty good student, and maybe not as much to a kid that's maybe more quiet. Or so, what is that experience like if they're not really feeling engaged and participating in it? And this is what I really want to know. You're gonna give us
Okay.
breaking news right now. So you've
Okay.
been in business for 1 year. You are going on to your second year. What going into this do you think you wish you would have done a little differently? And then what have been some of the things you've shifted to get to this second year?
Um, if I had to redo the last 2 years, so that's like the year before school opening,
Uh-huh.
um, I definitely would have marketed earlier and started talking to parents a lot sooner. I wanted things to be too perfect.
Right before, yeah. Okay.
Or I was thinking, is this going to happen? I was doubting myself, like this could really happen. And so I didn't push the school at all. Like it was like happening in secret.
Okay. Okay.
But really, what I should have been doing is talking about it to everybody, talking to parents, like even if it's not perfect, like still having kind of conversations around. um, around the school and what we were thinking about. And I would have just opened up the process a lot sooner.
Okay.
And not, and just being confident like this is going to happen. I'm going to talk to people. We're going to start getting people, you know, on board. And so that's what I really would have done um, a year out.
Okay.
Um, what have we pivoted? Um, well, surprising, this is a happy surprise that, when you have like your design model and then it kind of, what is it going to actually look like in real life? I'm
Mhm.
happy to say that we executed pretty much about 60% of
Okay.
what we thought we were going to be able to do
Okay.
in year one. So to me, that's very exciting. So now this year, I think we're going to be able to get it to like maybe 80-90%
Okay.
of the
Good.
design model. What we have planned for next year is one, to shore up our community partners so that kids have community projects over time, not
Mhm. Mm.
just a couple community engagements. So we'll be doing that, building out our community partners. Um, I'm happy to say that we'll be moving into a new space, so that's always exciting. So when folks say they want to come do a school tour, they're actually going to, be ushered into a very beautiful space. So we're really excited about that, because I think that also adds a level of excitement to a new school experience.
Yes.
Um, we're going to be hiring, I think, one more teacher this
Okay.
year, and so no, I'm pretty excited. It's really about what we learned from last year and just leveling it up, for this year. So it's just being intentional around the plan to live up to the design that we've established, and really marketing is year round.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say that sounds like the number one
It's
thing.
not just 3 weeks before the school is opening, it's year round.
You got to start talking to people today. Well, congratulations. I've been super, I've been one of your cheerleaders because, again, I was like, and I've told you this, like, who thinks of opening a school? What
Look,
you
my aunt is like 86, and I was telling her I was going to go visit her because I was visiting a school, and she was like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Because I'm about to open a school." And she goes, "Huh? Like, what do you mean open a school?" Because she has no frame of reference about people opening schools. She was just so perplexed. It was the cutest thing.
I agree. I agree. And I call myself pretty wise, but I was just like, did she just say she opening a school?
Yes,
But
yes,
anyway,
ma'am.
congratulations. Congratulations. I'm looking
Thank you.
forward to seeing great things as you go along. We'll have you back again as you evolve more. But before you leave, can you tell us how to find you?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, Saliha Nelson, and then also you can follow Urgent Academy on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find me through Urgent Inc. on Instagram and Facebook, and so I am there. I do have an Instagram account, but it's not active. Like, I have about 5 posts. So follow the school, but follow me on LinkedIn and stay connected. If you are looking to contribute, you want to work with middle school students, you're an artist, you're a filmmaker, you're an entrepreneur, you have a community-based organization or a business that would welcome projects with young people, please reach out to me. And I'm also looking to build my board. So if you want to get more involved in your community, please reach out.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. I will be talking to you soon because we're planning on doing some stuff as well.
Yes.
So I'll talk to you soon. Thank you
Thanks,
so much
Stephanie.
for talking to us. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. That was a very exciting show just because it's been wonderful to see the evolution of where this organization has been able to go and kind of be a part of it, actually. We will be taking a bit of a hiatus for a month, but we'll be back here in a month or so. But in the meantime, still check us out on YouTube, which is at Stephanie Creates TV. Check us out on Just Talking Business Facebook and Instagram. We'll continue to have information going and flowing, and please tune in and give us your opinion of the show. All right. We'll talk to you soon and have a great day.